Okay, so at this stage we're getting into more advanced flying, and it's time to take the challenge of the track that we're flying up a little bit and make it more difficult. And there is a natural progression from this particular track with the flags in it to one that's slightly more difficult. So if we go to change scenery and track, and we change to track lap, this track has hoop gates instead of flags. So if we fly down here, you'll see that we've still got a hoop there, albeit a bit smaller, but we now no longer have a flag down here for us to fly around, and we've got to fly through hoops. And of course this makes us fly much closer to the ground and get much more finer control of our quad to fly through the various gates, forcing us to be close to the ground. And this of course is another skill required for learning to fly racing gates, because as I said earlier, these are quite big gates compared to what pilots normally fly for a race, so they should be quite easy to fly through. But the positioning on this track is really awkward. All of these gates are set in quite an awkward position and are quite difficult to fly through, particularly this one here, which forces you to the left, to the right, and then to the left. It kind of throws you out on that gate, so that particular gate is probably the hardest one to fly on the track. But as you can see, this is forcing me to fly much lower and be very aware of the ground and my throttle control to keep myself out of the ground. Okay, so that's the next kind of progressive stage in terms of taking your flying on to flying through hoops, because these hoops are really quite large. But the other thing we want to do is we want to start thinking about, well, are we a racer? Is it racing that we want to do, or in fact are we a freestyle pilot and what we're interested in doing is freestyle? Because if what we're interested in is freestyle, then our setup is not correct. Now, one of the things we really want to do even for racing is we want to move away from this 40-40. This is a 4-inch prop with a 4-inch pitch. We want to start increasing this to give our quad more power, because at the moment we're running with a very depowered prop, which we did right at the beginning. If you remember, we came in here and we changed our prop to a little prop so that the throttle wasn't sensitive. You now want to start bringing this up, so you could first of all change to a 40-45, then a 50-40, there's this a 5-inch prop with a 4-inch pitch, and then up to a 50-45, which is a 5-inch prop with a 4.5-inch pitch. And this will give you much more power. So I can demonstrate that. So if I go back to 40-40 and we just do a quick run down here at full throttle, you can see that I'm getting about 75 mile an hour. If you look up top right, 75, 76, maybe 80 miles an hour. And the acceleration into that is not massively huge. It's quite quick, but it's not, you know, overly throttle sensitive. If I go into here and now change to the 50-45, you'll see that there is really quite a significant change. We now have got a 93, 94 mile an hour quad, 95 mile an hour quad, 97, much quicker. And the acceleration to get there, as you can see, is much higher. Really got lots and lots of acceleration and power now, and of course that makes the quad much more throttle sensitive as well. But equally that helps you in the corners when you want to make a turn down here, for instance, to go round here. You don't need to use anywhere near as the amount of throttle as you were using before, and you've actually got much more power to control the quad in the different turns and to stop and go back the other way. So on the one hand you've got to learn to be more sensitive with the throttle, but on the other hand you've got all that extra power now to help you in the turns. So that's putting the power back into the throttle. The other thing we did was we played around with this angle here, but we're not in angle mode anymore, so this doesn't matter. But what we did change was our maximum angular velocities here. So this is in degrees a second. So our maximum rotational rate at the moment is 400 degrees a second. So if we come out of here and I just quickly show you that, 400 degrees a second looks like that. You know, it's 360 degrees in just over a second. A rotational rate of 360 degrees a second would be 1 roll a second, or 1 back flip or forward flip per second. If we go back in here, it's set at 400, so it will do a roll or a flip in just under a second. And this is great for racing because it gives you really fine control to get through the gates, but if you're interested in freestyle, then you want to be in here and actually tuning this up. So we want to get on our super rates here, and we want to be going up to 1000 degrees a second, or 999, that'll do. Well, and you can actually click these as well and type in a number, so you can type in 0.8 like that. So now you're up to 1000 degrees a second, so let me just save that and I'll show you what 1000 degrees a second looks like. And this is more the sort of speed that you want for doing freestyle, because if you want to, you know, fly through something and then do a backflip like that, you want that speed. You don't want to be waiting forever for it to complete the backflip, or if you're going over the top of some trees like this and then diving down behind them, you don't want a really slow roll over the top. You want to be able to flick it over the top like that. This is what looks nice for freestyle, and you want the ability to do really fast turns as well. You don't want to be held back by a very slow setting in your flight controller. So that's what you want to change for freestyle. Of course, if you try and race with freestyle settings, it makes your controls really quite sensitive. Now some people like that speed that they've got on the sticks to be able to move the quad around, and other people don't. Other people like a really slow quad which gives them precision and sensitivity, or less sensitivity in the controls, so that they can move the control a long way and not all of a sudden get a huge rotational or flip going on. Okay, so that's the settings you want to change to get into freestyle modes. So at this point the world is really your oyster in terms of what you want to fly, but as a suggestion I would say to now switch over to the football stadium. So if we go through here to football stadium, and in here there are some multi-GP tracks. So multi-GP UTT1, actually not specifically that one, let's try the Bessel Run. The Bessel Run actually is really quite a nice track for learning to fly. So if we switch to that one,
ready to race,
press R to reset myself to the start grid. Now I'm not going to run freestyle, this is not freestyle, so this is, I'm going to change this back to something a bit more manageable. So I normally fly around about 600 degrees a second, that's what which is the defaults effectively in Velocidrone. Quite like those. Now in this course you can see you've got much smaller gates. These aren't the massive hoops anymore, and you've got some really quite nice turns that it makes you make in order to get through these gates. So this is really making you snake around and control your throttle and your height to get through these really much smaller gates. And this is the next stage in developing your racing skills, is being able to fly a really tight course like this with little tiny gates, really upping your precision. Now the next question would be, well, what after this? Well, after this you want to move into courses that start to develop your height control, start changing the height that you're flying at. So an example of one of those would be, let's have a look, MultiGP, yeah, the 2017 regional final course. This is a good example. So I'm going to run this one. I'm going to turn on, press I to turn on gate indicators for this, because I don't know this course that well, and I'm going to run it as a race, so it's telling me exactly where I need to go. But this one has some height changes in it, so it makes you fly over the top of that, and I think it's then back down and through here, and then you've got a nice little slalom for your fine control. Then you've got some hurdles, which again, this is developing your height control. Right, where do I need to go there? Oh, I need to go through that next gate. Okay, so this one you go down through here, oh, then I need to go up. Bit of a learning experience here as to what I'm supposed to be doing. Up through there, and then you've got a dive gate, so this is a dive back down through. You can see it's all about learning, and then again up and then down. So this is all developing your control of the quad in 3 dimensions, making sure that you get your height control.
Plus 37.41. Position 101.
Obviously I'm not breaking any records here, but this is just developing your skills on the throttle to go up and down and over things, and then getting some height and learning how to dive down through a dive gate, again up and then down again. And you can see this is really working your skills with smaller gates, but also with some height changes and some height.
19.83. Position 101.
So you've got some height control and understanding how the quad is going to react, that you can't blast the quad as you go through there because you'll end up too high and not be able to get down for the next gate. Also working out how you get angles right into dive gates like that. Really developing your skills further. And I apologise, I haven't got my stick display on here. I should have put my stick display on so you can see what's going on. I'll do one more lap so you can see what's going on with the sticks in the stick display.
Plus 27.9. Position 101.
We'll just run that race again.
2, 1.
I'll put my sticks on for you. So this is an over the top and then a back through. And you can see through here, I've been very careful not to really blast the quad through there on the power because you'll end up too high, and then here you can get right up above and you want to, oh, I'm going to hit that, which I did. I'll do that one again. Get right up above it so you can get a decent angle to dive back down through it. And again you can see just nipping up and over these, just little throttle control movements just to help you get through the gates. Okay, so that would be kind of a good next progression from the Bessel run for learning how to fly a course that's got some real height changes. And then from here, the next stage of progression would be on to something where you really do start to challenge your vertical skills. And something like that would be, there's some good ones for this in the coastal scene. Actually, before you would go on to that, flying in an enclosed space like the underground car park. So if we were to fly twin floors, yeah, that will do.